I'm on the bank of the Mara River where over 2 million wildebeest are gathered for an epic journey.
Jean Duplessis is on the trail of the great wildebeest migration, from the dangerous crossing of the crocodile-infested Mara River to the plains where he hopes to witness the largest mass birth on the planet.
Just arrived on the short grass plains, and with us arrived this enormous herd. The predators in this area must be thinking this is Christmas arriving.
But unusual weather patterns threaten to disrupt this year's migration. In Africa, nothing is guaranteed, especially for these nomads of the Serengeti. It's one of the last great wildlife habitats on Earth. At over 30,000 square kilometers, this vast and diverse ecosystem stretches from the Masai Mara in Kenya to the active volcanic highlands of the Tanzanian Rift Valley. It is home to 70 species of mammals. It's a World Heritage Site, and it has been named as one of the greatest natural wonders on Earth. This is the Serengeti. The name Serengeti comes from the Maasai language. It means endless plains. At its center is the migration, where more than 2 million wildebeest and zebra move in a continuous year-long cycle, driven by two distinct rainy seasons. They follow the rains to find the best grazing. Where there are millions of animals, you are sure to find predators and scavengers in abundance. They all play an important part in this circle of life on the Serengeti Plains. For 20 years, wildlife expert and safari guide Jean Duplessis has guided clients to see parts of the migration. Now he plans to follow the wildebeests from the north to the short grass plains. That's where the females will drop their young in the largest mass birth on the planet. But it all starts with an incredibly treacherous river crossing.
I'm on the bank of the Mara River where over 2 million wildebeest are gathered for an epic journey, traveling more than 500 kilometers into the southern Serengeti. That journey starts now in the Serengeti.
What drives the migration is rain. For the past 3 months, the rains have stayed in the north. But come October, there is a change, and the storms begin to move south, triggering an instinct in the wildebeest to move. Their first major obstacle is to cross the treacherous Mara River. And this morning, Jean is in the middle of the action.
I'm following a group of wildebeest. This group has now grown and it's constantly getting bigger. Off to my right are still streams of wildebeest coming out of the hills. Last night there was a huge amount of rain in this area, and that's those thunder showers that's now pulling down these wildebeest onto the riverbank.
This journey is their destiny, but it is fraught with dangers. About 250,000 wildebeest will die over the next year of natural causes like thirst, hunger, or exhaustion. And many more will die at the hands of predators, such as lions or crocodiles, that wait along the route. They approach the river crossing with caution. They sense the lurking dangers. But their instinct to move is stronger than their fear. Soon it becomes a mad rush. Now there are thousands jumping in. There are over 2 million wildebeest and zebra. It will take several weeks at many different crossing points before they have passed. The Mara's crocodiles hope to get in one last feed.
This was amazing. Just towards the end of the crossing, there was this enormous croc that got hold of a yearling and literally just took the entire head of this wildebeest in his mouth, and all of them submerged, and that's the last we ever saw of all of them.
The wildebeest migrate between two grassland areas, the Masai Mara in the north where they mate, and the short grass plains in the south where they give birth. They will be congregating on each grassland for approximately 3 months before the rains shift, and they begin to migrate out. The Tanzanian side of the Masai Mara is called the Lamai Wedge, and it's unique because it has unusually high numbers of predators in the area. In the open grasslands, Jean will have an easier time spotting them. To get there, Jean will have to brave the river too, but there's a problem. The bridge is flooded. Just a few days earlier, a vehicle tried to cross but got caught in the strong currents and plunged into the crocodile-infested waters, stranding 5 men. Despite the danger, Jean decides to go anyway. If he waits, the area could clear out of wildebeest, and he will miss his best chance to see the lions in action. Crossing the bridge is nerve-wracking. The trick is not to look down. If he does, he could begin to drift. Jean's experience serves him well. He makes it safely across to the Lamai Wedge.
When looking for lions, the easiest way to find them is to look for these clearings in between the herds of wildebeest. I mean, this time of the morning they would more than likely be moving, or they already be on the kill. But about an hour or two from now it would get too warm and they would be searching for shade. But for now we're focusing on the plains. I would get to a bit of an elevation and then scan with binoculars and see if we can pick them out.
Wildlife expert and safari guide Jean Duplessis is in the northern section of the Serengeti following the wildebeest as they migrate around the massive Serengeti ecosystem. It's October, and the herds are in the midst of dealing with their first and biggest obstacle, crossing the Mara River, where slippery rocks, rough currents, and crocodiles are some of the deadly obstacles that will claim thousands of the animals. The wildebeest that make it across will continue south and to the next phase of the journey, the largest mass birthing grounds on the planet. And Jean wants to be there to witness the births. Before the migration moves, Jean wants to observe predator behavior. The best place to see this is in the area north of the Mara River, known as the Lamai Wedge. As the millions of wildebeest cross the Lamai, large predators come out in force.
When looking for lions, the easiest way to find them is to look for these clearings in between the herds of wildebeest. But for now we're focusing on the plains. I would get to a bit of an elevation and then scan. This time of the morning they would more than likely be moving, or they already be on the kill.
Jean is looking for one of the clear signs of a kill, birds of prey circling above the Serengeti.
We're coming up on some vultures that's sitting on a carcass of something, obviously more than likely a wildebeest. It looks quite fresh. Yeah, it's a wildebeest that's been killed, and it doesn't look like hyenas. It's more than likely lions that had their fill, and as the sun rose, the vultures would pick up these kills, and they came to completely clean it off and eat every small piece of meat.
With wildebeest kills scattered everywhere, Jean takes a closer look to see what he can learn about the predator behavior in the area.
What I'm seeing here is a clear indication of predators that's not very hungry. One can see that a very small part of the rib cage has actually been consumed. Nice signs of hyenas chewing this off, but also not hungry hyenas, because had they been hungry, they would have eaten this entire rib cage. Just as for a hyena, it takes no effort to consume thick bones such as this. Other things that point out to me are the skin that remains, the legs, and generally when there's huge competition for food in an area, hyenas would come in and grab a piece of leg and would run off. So the entire carcass would disperse over a very big area. So this points out to me that there potentially wasn't a lot of conflict around this carcass because animals are not hungry. There's food all over this system. I've got some hyenas in a kill here. It's a fresh kill. They all kind of feeding quite ferociously. There's about 5-6 of them, and a lot of them are still kind of pups. What's very interesting is there's a silverback jackal that's constantly darting in and trying to take a bite, but these hyenas are having none of that, and they tend to kind of chase him off. But a little bit away, it seems where the actual kill happened, there's some skin and pieces of meat lying around. There's a big group of vultures there, and the jackal is also focusing. There he's coming in now. Yeah, he's getting his head right between the legs of the hyenas. It's an extremely brave act for something so small, because it will just take one bite of a hyena to kill him. They tolerate him up to a certain point, and then there's this half-hearted attempt of chasing him away, and he would just kind of scatter away a couple of meters and then come back immediately again. And there was one incident where he grabbed a big piece of skin, and I think that was enough for the hyenas, and then they chased him around the bush a couple of times. Interesting, these hyenas will consume most of that carcass. They've got incredibly powerful jaws, huge carnassial teeth, where when lions would feed on the kill, they would not eat the bones as much as hyenas would do that, and most of the rib cage is already gone. There's so much food around. They are fat, very, very well fed, and they must eat once or twice a day, and it's easy for a hyena to go 3 or 4 days. This is definitely not out of hunger. It's purely out of greed.
Not all the predators are hunting wildebeest. Jean comes across another resident of the Lamai Wedge, a smaller species of the cat family.
There's a serval cat here. You can see it moving over there now. It's very, very well camouflaged, but you can just see its back moving through the tall grass. Yeah, I came around a corner and there's a open clearing in between all of these wildebeests that indicated for me that there's a predator around. Now, I don't think this single serval created this clearing, so possibly some lions around, but this serval is down in a drainage ditch. He's clearly out hunting, and in these grasslands they would be after things like mice and birds, and they've got an incredible leap, so they will have grass birds shoot up into the sky, and they pretty much follow them up and take them out of the air.
Jean pushes on. He's working his way up through the plains along the boundary of the resident pride's territory.
There's a lioness in a rocky outcrop in front of me. This is the perfect place for a pride of lions to be hanging out on these plains. It's first of all shady, but it's also a great natural observation point. And I'm just trying to, it's extremely rocky, so I'm just trying to get a bit closer and see what they are up to. They are They are quite relaxed. These must be very well-fed lions. The flip side, of course, is when the migration moves out and the grasses are tall, it is extremely hard for lions to make a kill. She's lying down. This is an old female. I can see her ears are all tatty. Very dark black nose. I actually see two of them. No, it's also a female. She's a bit younger.
It's getting towards midday, and Jean is not seeing any predators on the hunt. In this heat, it's likely that the predators are doing their hunting early in the morning when it's still cool. So Jean decides to go back to camp and start again early tomorrow when he hopes the lions will be on the prowl. So he heads back across the still flooded bridge to camp for the night. The following morning, he starts out at sunrise. Within minutes, he gets lucky. A pride of lions has made a kill.
These guys are our resident pride. They're living fairly close to camp, and they must be the most fortunate lions in the Serengeti at the moment, having their entire migration moving through. Every wildebeest in the area kind of move past here on these shorter grass. So the only thing they need to do is just lie up in this drainage area, and it's literally littered with carcasses. And they are the carcasses for wildebeest right now. Right now, it's only the cubs feeding. There's quite a few cubs, two different ages, around 4 to 6 months. These cubs are now feeding into a bit of a game, and he's constantly trying to pull this carcass away from the rest of the group. It's also good practice for later on in life.
Living on the Serengeti is a mixed blessing for the lions. During the migration, the resident prides eat well, but once the wildebeest have left the area, the lions have to survive on leaner times. The never-ending cycle of the wildebeest migration on the Serengeti is a story of instinct and survival. Wildlife expert and safari guide Jean Duplessis has been watching the most spectacular part of the journey, the mass crossing of the Mara River. As deadly as predators are, the river poses a greater danger to the wildebeest. Its fast-flowing currents can sweep a wildebeest downstream, or if the herds choose a bad crossing point, hundreds of the animals can die. Jean is with a herd in trouble.
This is like worst case scenario. This is a very bad place for them to cross. The far side is kind of piling up with bodies, and then these guys down below just cannot get out of the river because of all of these exits being just congested by dead animals. You know, as far as one look down the river, there's just bodies drifting all the way down, and that's going to get trapped down in a rapid a bit lower down. And there's still hundreds of thousands of wildebeest coming in behind me, waiting to cross here.
And for the young and adolescent wildebeest in the herd, crossing the Mara is especially dangerous.
For an adult wildebeest, it's one thing to cross a high, fast-flowing river like this, but it's a massive challenge for the younger ones. In February, March this year, a lot of new wildebeest were born, so they made the journey up into the Masai Mara, and they crossed a much lower river. So they went into the Mara, and now suddenly they're coming back facing these massive currents, and that's a huge challenge for an animal that's not even a year old yet. The majority of the carcasses that I can see here are actually yearlings of these young ones that just could not get through this deeper river. Also, by the time that a wildebeest calf reach about this stage, they've more than likely separated from their mothers. So they form these little groups or herds of calves. And a lot of times you'll have a yearling herd that will cross by themselves. And that can be catastrophic for an entire herd of that, like that, if they hit a river. that is flowing as fast and deep as this right now. And you can see there's like hundreds of vultures and storks that's kind of sitting on top of this island and is now eating these dead animals. These vultures are the cleanup crews of the Serengeti, and without them it would really just be a mess of rotting bodies. Big groups of vultures like this can consume thousands of kilograms of meat in one day, so they form a crucial part in the cleaning up of the Serengeti. It is very difficult for vultures to actually tear up the skin of these tough wildebeest, so they have to wait for the bodies to partly decompose. Luckily, we're sitting a little bit upwind from all of this because it must just smell incredibly bad as you go downwind from this.
The crossing was catastrophic for this group. But what is bad for one species is good for another. Although scavengers like vultures sometimes get a bad rap, the work they do is of vital importance to the Serengeti. If all these carcasses were left to rot, the entire ecosystem would be in danger of contamination from diseases that go along with the rot. Vultures feed on dead meat or carrion. They can strip a carcass in a few hours. Surprisingly, it's not lions that eat the most meat, but vultures. The birds eat 70% of the meat on the plains. There are 5 different kinds of vultures on the Serengeti. These are the Ruppel's griffon vultures, identified by white streaked feathers and yellow beaks. These vultures don't make their nests in trees, they lay their eggs on cliffs. The vultures congregate in an area 120 kilometers southeast of the Mara River. It's Maasai territory, and Jean is going to meet with a Maasai guide who will take him to the cliffs where these birds make their nests.
This gorge is called Okarian Gorge, and this is one of very few breeding sites for these Ruppel's griffon vultures. These cliffs behind me are white with their droppings, and they must have used this area to breed for thousands of years. And it's the ideal nesting site for them because it's not entirely flat cliffs. There's hundreds of these little ledges that makes the perfect nesting site, and a nest really isn't much more than a couple of rough sticks thrown into a heap, and that's where the female will lay her eggs. This couple will pair up for the breeding season and form a monogamous pair, and together they would raise the chicks. What's quite amazing about these vultures are that they need to make daily excursions into the Serengeti plains to feed, and at the moment when the migration is down here in the short grass plains, it might only be about 50 kilometers, but as the migration moves northwards later on in the year, it can be hundreds and hundreds of kilometers in a return journey for them to go feed and come back to their chicks. It's interesting how they handle these huge journeys. It's not like they fly there and flap their wings. They would shoot up immediately from here into a high thermal. All around this gorge is extremely hot, so very effective thermals, taking them thousands of feet up into the sky, and they basically just glide down into the area the migration would be that time of year.
These vultures are the highest flying birds in the world. They can reach altitudes of 11,000 meters above sea level. They are big birds. Adults have a wingspan of just over 2.5 meters.
This huge amount of vultures around, there's feathers lying all over this gorge, and I picked up 2 here. This one here is a secondary feather, and this is a primary. These primaries are going at the edges of the wings, and that's what creates a lift for the bird when they flap their wings. And it's these secondaries that will keep the bird in the sky when it's actually soaring up in these thermals. The reason why birds do preening is they fix their feathers, where they bring these together and they stick them like Velcro. And this will create this solid platform for them to get up in the sky. This Rupel griffon vulture is one of the biggest birds in Africa. It's the second largest vulture, only rivaled by the Nubiums or the leopard-faced vulture. This is now where the gorge narrows, and when there's flash floods, this must be pretty deep. And quite incredible to think about that this gorge has been here for hundreds of thousands of years, and we are very close to the cradle of man, Olduvai Gorge. So some form of hominid must have been walking through here, getting water in the dry season, probably for the last 100,000 years. I'm quite a bit up into the gorge now, and this is one of the main reasons this gorge is so important for the Maasais. There's almost year-round water in the form of these pools and puddles that they can bring their livestock in to drink from. But they're also collecting this water to now take back to the village. This is pretty much the main purpose of a donkey, is that they can carry water out of such hard places down to the village. Apparently this water up here is more for human consumption, and the water down below would be for donkeys.
It's January in the Serengeti, where wildlife expert and safari guide Jean Duplessis is following the year-long wildebeest migration. It's now been 3 months since the herds finished the most dangerous part of the trip, the crossing of the Mara River. All throughout that 250-kilometer leg, the wildebeest have had to contend with predators. It is a war of attrition, but the first herds have made it through and begin to push out of the woodlands. The wildebeest are now heading to the southern shortgrass plains, where perhaps the most important event of the annual migration takes place. This is where the females give birth to more than 200,000 young over a 3-week period. It is the largest mass birth on the planet, and a spectacle that Jean does not want to miss.
It's incredible. We just arrived on the shortgrass plains, and with us are arriving this enormous herd of wildebeests. And they're all funneling through this gully right now, and on the other side of the plain must be tens of thousands of wildebeest. The roads are clearly very wet, meaning there must have been a big thunder shower here last night, and that's the driving force for the migration. There's very little instinct in these guys. It's all about following the rain, and this is where it's raining right now. So last night they must have seen the thunder, smelled the rain in the water, and this is why they are moving into this area. And this is generally what pulls the wildebeest from the north to the south, are these thunder showers that move from the north down into this area. The grasses here are fantastic. Right now I'm not seeing any young calves with them, which is great for us, because giving us some great opportunity to potentially witness a birth. But some of these females are looking very round and ready to pop. I'm certain in the next week we will see some births.
Now, just being on the shortgrass plains does not guarantee Jean will be able to stay with the herds. There are millions of wildebeests, but they can move fast. The entire wildebeest herd can completely vacate an area overnight. There are some parts of the park that are off limits to tourists, including Jean. If the wildebeest go into one of these areas, Jean would miss the entire calving season. Jean has decided to base himself at sanctuary camps in a spectacular area known as Kusini. From the camp, he'll have the perfect vantage point to keep his eye on the migration. Its central location should keep Jean in striking distance when they begin dropping their young. But even the best thought-out plans are subject to approval by Mother Nature. Today, things are not looking good for Jean. A massive storm is rolling in, fueled by a tropical storm off Tanzania's coast. An entire month's rain, nearly 20 centimeters, falls overnight on the short grass plains, turning the entire area into a swamp. The rains have triggered the herds to move again, but the heavy dump has created a major problem. Reports say the roads are impassable and that vehicles are stranded all over the plains. If he waits, he could lose track of the herds. So Jean decides to brave the conditions. He realizes quickly this is going to be a tough day. Jean is driving on black cotton soil, which behaves a lot like ice.
Trick is to keep the car moving.
If he stops, he won't have the traction to get moving again.
There we go. Not good at all. However, we've got a hyena to our right. Nothing's going to help us much right now. Next thing is to try and dig out these pockets so we can make ourselves a little bit of a runway to get out. Ideally, it'd be nice to find some wood to now put in front of the tires, and we just need to get moving again and get that momentum.
Jean has to dig out each tire. He lines the ruts with grass, hoping it will give him enough traction to get back on the road.
And I think we'll just stick with the motto of momentum. I'll probably get stuck down the road track. Can't really call this a road, can we?
Wildlife expert Jean Duplessis is following the wildebeest herds as they travel through the Serengeti on their year-long migration. They are just days away from the most important event in their yearly migration, where the wildebeest females give birth to 200,000 young over a 2 to 3 week period. It is the largest mass birth on the planet. A massive rainstorm swept through the area, flooding the short grass plains. With the rain, the wildebeests have moved out. Jean is in an area called Moru Koppies, where he hopes to see the mass births. While he waits for the advancing herds to arrive, he has time to explore the area's unique geology.
This area is known as Moru Koppies, and the word koppie is really a Dutch word that refers to these rocky outcrops. That's such a prominent feature all around us. What it really is a fault line in the rift. Now, as the rift was splitting apart, you had all this magma pushing through, trying to get to the surface, but actually solidifying quite deep under the ground, cooling down quite slowly, making these incredible boulders. And now, many years later on, you have the surface eroding away and starting to expose the top of these intrusive igneous rocks. And it makes very nice refuge for things like lions.
Moru is home to an unusually high number of lion prides, and in no time he finds the resident pride, which is headed by 2 dominant males.
This pride of lions have 4 young cubs that's about 2 to 3 months old.
Right until now, it's been extremely quiet here in terms of prey, so it must have been hard going for this pride to even get these cubs to be 2 months old. Soon it's going to be like a massive party on their doorsteps all the time with these millions of wildebeests pushing into these plains.
In spite of the king of the beast reputation, territories are actually controlled by the females. They're the ones who create the social structure, raise the cubs, and do most of the hunting. Prides have as many as 5 or 6 females and their cubs.
This is possibly the best time for lions to have cubs here in the southern Serengeti. All around the southern plains are drying out, and here in Morucopis are the last areas with green grass. And about in a week's time, you'll have all these herds of wildebeest pushing into Morucopi, making it extremely easy for these lions to kill something and have a constant source of food.
While the territory is controlled by the females, the prides are controlled by the males. In the key areas, it takes more than one male to hold a pride. That is known as a coalition. This pride is controlled by a coalition of 2 strong males. Part of their job is to defend their pride from being taken over by nomadic male lions. As the wildebeest migration moves in, providing an abundant supply of food, nomadic males come in as well, following the food and ready for a fight. Males are forced out when they're about 2 years old. They are looking to establish or take over a pride of their own. And for a lion, there is no better place than Morucopis. The following morning, Jean is out early and immediately finds a serious threat to the resident pride.
I just came across 3 nomadic male lions. They seem to be about 3 years of age. They've got a scruffy, smallish mane, but they are huge in body. And they obviously made a kill last night, and this guy is carrying his dinner. It's a wildebeest. No, it's a young zebra. Yeah, it's a small zebra. And what's interesting is that when there's 3 and more males together in a collision, that they will always be related. So they are definitely brothers, and even when you look at them, they seem to be exactly the same age, same size manes.
Usually, a 3-year-old male is too young to challenge the dominance, but Jean thinks this trio is ready for a fight.
Already by walking around like this in the open is brave. A nomadic lion, theoretically, is always sneaking through the territory of a dominant male somewhere. And that dominant male is constantly looking out for guys like this to come and beat up. Generally, a lion will be dominant in a pride when it's about age 5 or 6 even. But 3 big brothers like this will more than likely be able to overthrow all the males in the pride when they are only 4, 4.5. These guys are so powerful that they might dominate a couple of prides of females, especially like an area like Morucopis where you've got so much diversity in landscape. There's quite a few prides of females in a fairly small area, and they can quite easily become dominant over 2 or 3 prides of females, making them, of course, very powerful. It's rare in the Serengeti that the male lion gets much older than 10, at a push 12, and it's quite common that a lion in a zoo can reach age 20, 25. There's even a lion in Germany in a zoo that's age 40. But out here in the wild, where they need to really work for a life, that cuts a few years off their lives.
When a new male takes over the pride, he kills all the cubs to make room for his own. With these cubs already a few months old, the females are counting on the 2 males for the survival of the pride. If the 3 males challenge, it will be a long night in Morucopis. After a noisy night, Jean heads out before sunrise. He's greeted by an incredible sight.
Where did they come from so quickly? I'm out here on the short grass plains, and overnight, hundreds of thousands of wildebeest just appeared. Yesterday there was very little around, and today suddenly they're everywhere. I mean, as far as I can see, it just looks like pepper. There's hundreds of thousands even.
This is good news for Jean. For a while, it looked like the wildebeest herds were heading towards protected land that is off limits. It would mean that he would not be able to witness the mass births.
And our objective still is to find a female giving birth. Right now, there's no calves around, which is a very good sign for us, because once the calving starts, it's a very rapid process, and these females will all be dropping their calves to, I guess, flood the market. There would just be too many calves for predators to take advantage of.
Jean is not the only one out cruising the herds. He finds the dominant male lions, but by the looks of them, there was an epic battle during the night.
They are both beaten up quite badly. The one had a real messed up eye, and the other one had quite a bad limp.
They may look badly injured, and they've lost a lot of fur around their manes, but they seem to have won the fight against the nomadic males.
If a dominant male will get injured in a fight, he's extremely fortunate to be dominant inside a pride, because these females will continue to hunt and he can benefit from their efforts and the food that they catch. There's 5 lionesses walking through the herd. There's this kind of classic lion hunting behavior in the migration, as they are looking for anything that might be injured that's just easy pickings, and it's almost like, why expel any energy if you don't have to? We're in the calving season, and generally female wildebeest will give birth before 10 o'clock in the morning, and obviously when that baby is born, it's very, very vulnerable. So these lions are kind of fanned out. I'm certain they're either looking for a female giving birth or a young one that was just born. So these lions didn't make a kill, but they are not very well fed. So they will definitely have to hunt within the next 12 hours, probably later this afternoon when it cools down again. And I suspect now they're heading into one of these koppies where the wildebeest will also need to drink during the day. And they're probably going to lie up there and hope for a better chance later.
Wildlife expert Jean Duplessis has been following the great wildebeest migration since October, when the 2 million animals made their deadly and dangerous crossing of the Mara River, where thousands died. It's now February, and the survivors have made it to the short grass plains, where the females are about to give birth. It is a true phenomenon of the natural world, the largest mass birth on the planet.
We just got a call from one of our drivers saying that he's with 2 wildebeest that are giving birth. So we're just trying to race to get there, because once it starts, it's quite quick for it to happen. It's interesting that wildebeest will only give birth up until about 10 o'clock in the morning, because the baby will need the rest of the day to get strong to be running by nightfall and escaping predators.
Jean makes it to the area where his guide and clients have a front row seat.
We just passed a female with her leg sticking out of her, so there's a birth about to happen. Yeah, she found a flat patch and she's just kind of circling around. They tend to prefer an area, that doesn't have a huge amount of tall grass. She's chosen the safety of the herd to give birth for obvious reasons. This young calf coming out is extremely vulnerable. Hyenas, lions, and all kinds of predators are out on the prowl this time of the morning, and they are keeping a watchful eye out for something just like this. Yeah, it's gonna happen any moment now.
There you go, she just stood back up. And yeah, that's like having gravity help her, but then there the baby drops. It's incredible, she's just coming around sniffing on the baby now. It's amazing how quickly this all happens. Yeah, it's about 5 to 10 minutes now, and the baby is starting to move around a bit more, and it's kind of trying to stand up, pushing it up on its hind legs, but very off balance still. You know, this young guy will be ready to go in the next 5 minutes. You know, 10 minutes later, ready to run with his mum, because now hyenas are really watching out for young calves falling over like that, and they would be here in a flash if they can see it. There you go, a new generation starting all over. In a few months' time, this baby would even be strong enough to start up the migration up north, and by July, August, even cross the Mara River. It's incredible to think that that little thing just born there, so helpless, in 6 months' time will be crossing huge rivers full of crocodiles that's like 12, 13 feet long. You know, and besides that, of course, they also have to travel 400 kilometers to get there through hyena and lion infested savanna.
For just over 3 months, Jean has been following the first leg of one of the greatest journeys in nature, the wildebeest migration. From the crossing of the Mara River to the mass birthing grounds, the millions of animals are in constant motion. Their movement is crucial to the Serengeti ecosystem. Everything in it thrives off their impact, from the grasses, insects, to the birds and predators. Everything is connected, defining the circle of life on the Serengeti. It's the greatest wildlife spectacle on Earth. Jean Duplessis follows the wildebeest migration through the Serengeti.
So there's a birth about to happen. She's right here in this group.
The wildebeests have given birth. Now they head back north to face the crossing of the treacherous Mara River.
There's a huge crocodile in the river. A croc of this size only needs one decent meal once a year.
Jean aims to time his arrival perfectly.
There's another very large group that's also pushing onto the river.
But when and where they'll cross is anyone's guess. There are no timetables for these nomads of the Serengeti. The Serengeti is one of the oldest intact ecosystems on Earth. It covers an area nearly the size of Belgium and spans 2 countries, Tanzania in the south and Kenya in the north. The ecosystem has evolved over millions of years. Every living thing here, from the tiniest insect to the largest creature, plays a very specific part in keeping it balanced. The most important driver of this system is the wildebeest migration, and the mechanism that triggers them to move is the weather. Sometime around October, thunderclouds build on the horizon and the rains begin to move south, signaling the start of one of the greatest mass movements of animals on the planet. It begins with the actions of a single animal. Then, driven by an ancient instinct, the rest of the herd follows. It's a dangerous journey where predators wait along the route and prey on the passing herds. And then there's the treacherous crossing of the Mara River, where wildebeest will die in the thousands. Wildlife expert and safari guide Jean Duplessis has been tracking the herds. The wildebeest have completed the first trek of their year-long journey. They've arrived on the shortgrass plains, where the females have begun to give birth in what is the largest mass birth of mammals on the planet.
We just passed a female with her leg sticking out of her, so there's a birth about to happen. Yeah, she found a flat patch and she's just kind of circling around. She's chosen the safety of the herd to give birth for obvious reasons. You know, hyenas, lions, and all kinds of predators are out on the prowl this time of the morning. And they are keeping a watchful eye out for something just like this. Yeah, it's gonna happen any moment now. There you go, she just stood back up. And yeah, that's like having gravity help her, but then there the baby drops. It's incredible, she's just coming around sniffing on the baby now. It's amazing how quickly this all happens. Yeah, it's about 5 to 10 minutes now, and the baby is starting to move around a bit more, and you know, it's kind of trying to stand up, pushing it up on its hind legs, but very off balance still. You know, this young guy will be ready to go in the next 5 minutes. There you go, a new generation starting all over. In a few months' time, this baby would even be strong enough to start up the migration up north, and by July, August, even cross the Mara River. It's incredible to think that that little thing just born there, so helpless, in 6 months' time will be crossing huge rivers full of crocodiles that's like 12, 13 feet long. You know, and besides that, of course, they also have to travel 400 kilometers to get there through hyena and lion infested savanna.
Less than 10 minutes after it's born, the baby is on its feet. This is where the baby will imprint on its mother. They will get to know one another's scent and call. This is just the start of the wildebeest's mass births. 200,000 calves will be born over the coming weeks. It's an extremely smart adaptive strategy. On these open plains, the newborns are easy prey to the predators that follow the migration. So by flooding the market with so many newborns at once, tilts the odds in the wildebeest's favor. Some will be taken, but many more will survive. There are huge challenges ahead for the newborn wildebeests. In 2 months' time, the calves will be ready to join their mothers on the return trip up north. But this first 24 hours is crucial for its survival. But with so many newborns today, the first day is a trying time.
This is a little water hole outside of camp, and this is some of the only standing water in the area. And these animals found it, and yeah, great delight. Bit of disturbance. For many of these young wildebeest that was born this morning or last night, this would be the first time that they are drinking. And there's a little bit of pandemonium as the wildebeest start to run around. They lose their mothers, and there's a few of them just standing around. There's one here in the grass that clearly lost its mom, and a few of the adult females have been coming around just smelling it and showing a little bit of concern. I mean, this poor thing must have been born this morning early, and to already lose your mom. Yeah. Some interest. And there's a second baby that's also coming up now, even younger. That one is tiny. You can still see the umbilical cord hanging down. You can see there's a few mothers coming up smelling some of these lost babies, and they would immediately push them away once they realize that that's not their calf. With wildebeest, it's very much like bats or flamingos, where every calf have a particular frequency that the mother zones in on, and it's not uncommon for babies to get lost, but they generally find each other.
Luckily for this calf, its mother responds to its cries, and the two are reunited. The pair head off with the baby sticking closer by this time. Wildlife expert and safari guide Jean Duplessis is in the central Serengeti following the year-long wildebeest migration. It's February, the midway point on the migration route. Jean is on the short grass plains in the south, observing the mass births. The wildebeest females all give birth at the same time. Hundreds of thousands of calves are born in a 2 to 3 week period. For a species constantly on the move, this is an excellent survival strategy. The newborns are vulnerable to the predators that follow the migration. The only safety is in numbers. So the female wildebeests have timed their births to flood the market. Some will fall to predators, but with so many young, the odds are in the wildebeest's favor. For the newborns, life starts quickly. The calves are up and running within 10 minutes of being born. The first 24 hours is crucial for these newborns. This is when they bond with their mothers. But in a massive herd, the little ones often get lost. Jean has found a calf wandering along a main road, alone.
I just came across a baby wildebeest that's obviously lost. And what happens is they basically imprint on anything. So he saw this vehicle driving fairly close to him. He came running up to it. And at this stage of their lives, they're so dependent on a bigger creature taking care of them, hopefully being the mom, that even if I get out of the car, it will come right up to me and then kind of hope for some care. It's kind of quite sad.
The baby heads off over the plains in search of its mother. Luckily, it chooses the direction that takes it back to the protection of the herd. And that's a good thing. Just up the road, Jean finds a predator.
I just came upon a cheetah. She's down in a crouching position. It looks to me like she's hunting. She's looking at either like wildebeest. There's quite a few of them around, but there's also like 4 or 5 Thompson's gazelles here that she's more than likely after. And also seems like these Thompson's gazelle are moving towards her, but also still not looking at her. There she goes. I think she couldn't make up her mind which one to go after, and it's so important for cheetahs to focus on one gazelle and just stick behind that. And it seemed like she was going between the 2 different groups, and she didn't get lucky on this one.
The cheetah has missed its prey. It's too hot now for another attempt, so it retreats and will look for any shade it can find.
She's now walking back to her cubs, which seems to be the only shade in the area. It's actually a safari vehicle that's parked behind us. It was also witnessing this, and the cubs are lying under the vehicle, and she's on her way there as well.
There's no lunch for them, but the cubs seem fine with that. Now they have more time to play.
So the mum just came to this vehicle to join her cubs. This is the only shade around, and they need to improvise, and they are really having a good time
lying under the vehicle. There's 3 cubs here, and extremely playful, and obviously enjoying the new tires that's in this vehicle and giving it a good chew. These guys are going to be stuck here for a while. I'm trying to make sure that none of these cubs come and lie down under our car, because the moment they get under your car, you ain't going anywhere. And these cheetahs are pretty much down for the rest of the day, so I hope these guys have lunch with them. Or maybe they will leave lunch. Check, it's going.
The tourists will have to stay put until the cheetahs decide to move, which will most likely mean a few more hours until the temperature starts to cool and the cheetahs head off to find dinner. The wildebeest herds will spend the next few months in the short grass plains, feeding on the rich grasses and nurturing their young. But soon the rains will start moving north, signaling the herds that it's time to get going again. The wildebeest migration is not just a defining piece of life on the Serengeti. It is also a key driver of the ecosystem. Over the course of the year, the millions of wildebeests drastically affect the landscape. The animals graze on the grasses like a giant team of lawnmowers, allowing new shoots to grow and keeping the plains healthy. With millions of wildebeests, there's a lot of waste. Some of that dung fertilizes the grass, which in turn helps it to grow for the next time the animals pass. But there is so much dung that nature has developed other solutions to make sure the plains are not overwhelmed. On the Serengeti, an army of its smallest residents go to work.
We just came upon this great dung beetle making a dung ball out of some zebra droppings. It's incredible to actually watch the whole thing happen from the beginning, where this beetle has almost cut out this ball and then selecting this really good pieces of dung to complete the ball. And it's using these spade-like legs to pat it down and make it round. What it's going to do now is we'll start to roll it, and the idea about the rolling is to now cover it in soil, making a really solid casing that will eventually protect the egg and then later on the larvae that's going to be inside this wet pile of dung. Ah, there we go, quite amazing. Look at that. This thing is like 10 times the size of this dung beetle, and it's moving it. It's not only going to move it, it's going to push it quite a considerable distance. And the idea about the distance pushing is now to cover this wet mud with this soil.
Insect life is crucial to the ecosystem and true to the Serengeti's epic nature. Even the small creatures do things in big ways. Scattered throughout Africa are impressive structures built of mud and clay. These are termite mounds. Their architects, although tiny, have a huge role to play.
With 2.5 million mammals in the migration, one would think that nothing can really outcompete them when it comes to the amount of grass that's consumed. But the true champions are, in fact, these little guys. Within a termite mound, there's no sexes. Theoretically, they are all sterile females, but they are categorized in classes. And what I see here are lots of different individuals doing different functions. There's some bringing up the mud, building the mound, then there's others that will be collecting dead plant materials, but then there's these big guys, the soldiers, who would just be walking around and they're constantly tapping their head. It's like a signal, and I'm sure they're a little bit disturbed with me being here, and that's a signal that they're giving that there is some threat close by, and their sole purpose will be to defend all these smaller ones, which are completely helpless.
These harvested termites don't actually carry the dead plant material in the mandibles, but they would swallow it and regurgitate it when they get back into the mound. These plants then act as a substrate for fungi to grow in. That is what these termites eat. That's also one of the main reasons for these chimneys, is that it creates an air conditioning system that maintains a constant temperature within the mound of about 26, 27 degrees Celsius, and it's just a perfect environment for fungi to grow.
These harvester termites eat enormous amounts of grass and plant material. Their eating habits and the placement of these mounds changes soil textures.
In Africa, there's lots of different types of mounds that one can find, and the bulk of the mound goes down, and if I look down into these chimneys, it is at least 8 feet down that the actual air vent goes. Because these termites are not actually living inside the air vents, they've got no problem with other creatures making use of such a safe environment. This mound have a hive of African honeybees living inside here. I can constantly see them coming and going. But even more interesting is there's some sort of predator living in here, a small predator that predominantly feed off something like millipedes, because I can see a lot of millipede shells lying around, and there's even a dead bird inside. This is just such a fantastic entire ecosystem.
The shortgrass plains in the south of the Serengeti are beginning to dry out. The rains are moving north. As always, the wildebeest instinct compels them to follow. Instinct tells them the rains will lead them to better grazing land. The babies have survived their first 3 months and are getting stronger. They need to, because in just 2 months' time, they will face the greatest challenge of their lives: their first crossing of the crocodile-infested Mara River. Wildlife expert and safari guide Jean Duplessis has been checking in with the herds at various points on their annual route. Along the way, he's taking time to explore some of the dynamic relationships in the Serengeti's ecosystem. The Serengeti is one of the few unspoiled places on the planet. This makes it a perfect place to see how an ecosystem evolves to support a variety of species. Everything from a blade of grass to the predators and the giants of Africa all play their roles, and they're all interconnected. Remove one, and the whole ecosystem can be thrown out of balance. The savanna elephant is a large animal, and its impact on this ecosystem is equally large. Elephants are bulk feeders and eat a lot of foliage. So their role in this symbiotic system is to maintain the savanna and woodlands by reducing tree density and keeping the forest from overrunning the grass plains. Some species flourish by developing a survival mechanism that draws some and repels others. Trees develop nutritious leaves or tasty fruit to encourage animals to eat. The animals then move on and deposit seeds from the trees in a new location, in a fresh pile of fertilizer. But too much of a good thing can be bad for the trees, so they have also evolved ways of keeping browsers like elephant and giraffe from eating too much.
This is an acacia tortilis, and this is one of the most common trees in the Serengeti. And what's interesting is that it's also one of the most nutritious leaves, and probably the tree of choice for something like a giraffe. In the rest of the world, there's over 800 different species of acacia. Most of the acacia species have not got thorns, and they completely evolved in Africa as a form of protection against these massive browsers. But still, the giraffe managed to find a way to get past these thorns with a prehensile tongue that can really go in between these thorns and completely strip off these little leaves. And giraffes are highly efficient, so they are obviously getting what they need to live out on these sometimes very barren plains. Another interesting thing about these acacias are that they've got these tiny, tiny little leaves. And the main reason is to allow maximum sun to reach the leaf but to avoid it losing too much moisture, making it possible for this tree to survive in such dry and arid environments.
Even something as routine as one species having a bath can have benefits for another species in an ecosystem that's evolved in an interconnected way.
This is central Serengeti, where there's water all year round, and we just came upon a nice breeding group of elephants that came down for their morning drink. And there's huge excitement between some of the adolescents as they go down into the river and having a good old swim and a nice wash.
In a balanced ecosystem, even something as routine as a bath can have benefits for a number of species. As the elephants splash and play, they widen the wallow, which means it can hold more water. It also creates more access so other animals can come to drink.
There's one elephant here that's having a good old scratch. It's a good way of getting rid of ticks, you know, with the kind of mud. It's a little bit of like a body paint that scratches off all the ticks. He's coming out now. It's really important for elephants to get to water on a fairly regular basis. Their skins are about double the size as it seems, and it's all kind of wrinkled up. And by rolling around in mud and water like this, a lot of water gets trapped in these folds, and that will actually keep them cool when they're out on the plains that's extremely hot during the middle of the day. Got a nice female. But I guess she didn't like me calling her a female. They had the most incredible wash and play and rub, you know, it's like a massive spa that they found here. This would be a very popular little water hole in such hot, dry climates as right now. I heard one of these older cows make what we call a tummy rumble as one of their communication signals, and that's generally a sign that they want some kind of movement. I'm sure one of these two here are probably the matriarch, and she's in charge of this little breeding group, and she probably feels like she had enough now and it's time to move on. And these younger ones does not seem in the mood to be moving on.
As the central Serengeti enters its dry season and streams and rivers disappear, these wallows will become refuges for another one of Africa's great species.
Behind me is the Orangi River, and this is one of many seasonal rivers in the Serengeti. The catchment area for this river is coming off the short grass plains, and it only feeds into this river during the rain season. Right here is a little bit of a dammed area where obviously hippos are having a great time, and it's quite a popular tourist stop where one can have easy access to such great herds of hippos. Unfortunately for these guys, as it gets drier and drier, all of this water will eventually dry up, and that can be quite catastrophic for hippos in extreme dry seasons. Fortunately, hippos do have a little bit of a backup system that can give them a few more days when it's completely dry. They release their own type of sunscreen that's referred to as blood sweat, and that will turn a hippo red and will give him another 2, 3, maybe up to 5 days to survive, hopefully waiting for rain to arrive. These hippos can have a bit of a tough time during certain times of the year, which is very different to hippos up in the northern Serengeti living in the Mara River that's got a year-round supply of water.
It's July in the Serengeti, and the wildebeests have begun their migration back up north towards Kenya. The newborns are getting stronger each day. They'll need that strength. In a few weeks' time, they will face their biggest challenge of their lives, the crossing of the treacherous Mara River. Wildlife expert and safari guide Jean Duplessis has been tracking the herd since they began their journey 9 months ago.
So the migration is heading north at the moment. It seems like it's split up into two groups, one group going west and another group going east. Now the problem is that the group going east is heading into the Serengeti wilderness zone that's inaccessible to us, and the group heading west are heading into private game reserves where we also cannot go into. So our only hope is to reconnect with this group as they are heading the northern Serengeti and maybe get together again and form one of these huge mega herds.
For Jean, the good news is that the wildebeest will be moving very fast, and for good reason. They're moving through the woodlands, and the wildebeest feel vulnerable here. Lions and other predators have lots of cover, which gives them a great advantage when it comes to hunting wildebeest. The central part of the Serengeti is entering its dry season. As the rains move north, the rivers and streams begin to recede, leaving only small pockets of water. This affects different species in different ways. These small pools of water become gathering places for animals to drink and cool off. And that makes a perfect place for predators like lions to find their next meal.
I just drove over the small bridge, and there's a male lion lying on the side of this river. This is the kind of the beginning of the Grumeti River, and they've killed a zebra, and they've eaten quite a bit. They are really thick. It seems like he's going to pull us back to the shade. What probably happened here is these zebras came down to drink, and these males ambushed them. It looks like fairly young males. You know, their manes are not completely full yet. So it's quite hard for these males to make a kill. So this is a perfect place for these males to be lying up, waiting for these zebras to come down and drink. And that's more than likely what happened. And he's trying to kind of pull this back into the shade now, but it's so hot, and he needs to decide where he's going to preserve his energy. There's actually a big croc on the river as well that's eyeing up that carcass. That lion is giving a roar, and you also see this crocodile opening his mouth, probably hissing back at the lion. It's quite amazing seeing something like this.
Crocodiles have evolved to live in water, where they are fast and agile hunters. They're not really designed to attack on land. When the rivers dry up, the crocs lose most of their predatory advantage, and they have to become scavengers if they want to eat. Nothing of this animal will go to waste. There is always another species that will line up to take over when another is done. The lion is so stuffed, his belly is stretched, but even still, he is reluctant to concede defeat and leave his prize to the croc. The lion retreats. Backing off was a good decision for the young lion. Even on land and out of its element, a croc is a formidable foe. It has the strongest bite force in the animal kingdom, at least 3 times that of a lion. While the crocodiles in this little river do what they can to get a meal, their brothers in the Mara River are in their element and getting ready for their annual feast.
This is the Mara River, and this is the last major obstacle that these newborns will have to contend with. But not only do they need to cross this river and potentially choose a bad crossing place and die in the thousands, They also need to navigate themselves around monster crocodiles that's lying here waiting for an entire year for this very crossing.
There's a huge crocodile in the river. What's extremely interesting about crocodiles in general are that they are cold-blooded, so they don't need to eat food on a daily basis to keep their body temperatures warm. A croc of this size only needs one decent meal once a year. These huge Nile crocodiles are probably our best look into what massive dinosaurs look like. They have stayed unchanged since the dinosaur era, and probably the best example of something that's so custom designed to the way they live. And they didn't need to evolve much since those early days. You know, they can completely submerge themselves with only their nostrils and their eyes above the water, and still even then it just looks like 4 pebbles that's in the river, and get right in close to make effective kills. For us to experience crocodiles making a kill, it's very important to be here the moment these first herds of wildebeest will arrive at the riverbanks and start crossing, because that's when a crocodile will more than likely make a kill.
It's now August, and soon the wildebeest herds will be back at the Mara River. This is where Jean started to track the herd almost a year ago. The journey has covered 10 months, and it is almost at an end. The Mara River is the lifeblood of the northern Serengeti ecosystem. It spans 2 countries, beginning in the highlands of southern Kenya, snaking its way across the Tanzanian border and emptying into Lake Victoria. Its constant flows divides the park into 2. The wildebeest are headed to open grasslands on the opposite side of the river, where they'll spend the next 3 months.
I'm on my way to try and find the front end of the migration, and this time of year they already should have been kind of all over the northern part of Serengeti, but I'm just driving hill after hill and plane after plane, and there's absolutely nothing out here, and it's a little bit disheartening, you know, to just not see a thing around. An entire industry is dependent upon the migration that was supposed to be here already about a month ago. And for some reason it seems that they have flanked to the north and a little bit to the west of this very crucial northern Serengeti or called Kokatenda area.
As the week progresses, there is still no sign of the wildebeest. Jean has no choice but to wait them out. The herds were last seen heading out of the Serengeti National Park into private land where even wildlife experts like Jean are not allowed. Where and when the wildebeest will re-enter the park is anyone's guess. The reason for the delay is the lack of rain. The wildebeest herds follow the rain, but no rain means the grasses, which should be lush and green, are still dry and brown. Soon, storm clouds begin to build on the horizon, fueled by moisture from nearby Lake Victoria. Little by little, they grow into massive thunderclouds until they burst in a torrent of rain. These short, intense storms crisscross the northern Serengeti and head towards the grasslands north of the Mara River. It only takes a few days of rain to give life to the land, and before long, the area is green with new grass. All that's left now is for the wildebeest to come.
So I arrived in the area a little bit early, The migration is yet to arrive, but there were some big thunder showers last night, and that generally will pull in the herds. So there's not much more to do but to sit and wait here, and I can imagine worse places to wait than here in the Serengeti.
And with the rains, the wildebeest begin to move. Now the question is, where will they show up? The next morning, Jean gets out at first light in search of the advancing herds he knows will be coming.
In front of me is where we saw that storm last night, and an area in front of us is called Bolagonja, and behind me is Kokatende. And I suspect to find the big herds just over this rise. But the big concern is that if they just go slightly east, they can go into Kenya and cross the river in the Masai Mara, which is on the Kenyan side, meaning that the entire northern Tanzania is going to miss out on seeing a migration and river crossings this season. Kenya is actually just a couple of kilometers over that way, but to reach that, we have to go all the way back to Arusha, and that's about a 2-day journey to then get into the Masai Mara. So I really hope that the animals that's potentially in front of us is going to swing west and come a little bit downriver and do have a couple of crossings down on the Tanzania side.
But Jean doesn't have to wait long. Just over the next rise, he finds that the wildebeest have arrived. There are so many animals, they dominate the plains and surrounding hills.
We just crossed a little stream, and all of these wildebeest are coming down to drink. It's about midday, very hot. So there are thousands around.
They are moving towards the Mara River to make the crossing. Now the question is, where will they cross? Will they head into Kenya, or will they stay in Tanzania? A male shows interest in a passing female. It will soon be the annual rut when the wildebeest will mate again. For now, though, they have a river to cross.
So we just came over a hill and we hit the Mara River, and there's a big group of wildebeest starting to pack along the banks of the river. And this is normally a good sign of them wanting to cross. The general direction is to keep on going north. So these animals are definitely lining up for a crossing. It might happen today, might happen tomorrow morning. I mean, the only way you're going to see it is to hang around and wait.
The wildebeest migration is one of the greatest spectacles in the animal kingdom. They spend their lives almost constantly on the move, in a circle that takes them around the Serengeti. It's August, and they are heading back north. One obstacle remains, the crossing of the crocodile-infested Mara River.
So we just came over a hill and we hit the Mara River, and there's a big group of wildebeest that's starting to pack along the banks of the river. And this is normally a good sign of them wanting to cross. It might happen today, might happen tomorrow morning. I mean, the only way you're going to see it is to hang around and wait.
Jean will keep following the herds. It was 6 months ago that the young wildebeest were born. This river crossing is a major event for adult wildebeests who have done this before. But this is the first time that the little ones have ever seen or experienced this river. Evolution has timed the birth so that the newborns have had enough time to develop their strength and coordination before they encounter the river.
Yeah, this group in front of me is probably about 2,000 to 3,000 and counting, but off to the north there's another group of a couple of thousand. It seems like they would see these guys running and they're on their way here. But then down to the south, there's another very large group that's also pushing onto the river. So I think I'm in the best position now to kind of scout all the areas. And we'll see where it starts to happen and then make a choice from there.
Jean has timed his arrival perfectly. The second column of wildebeests advancing up the western side has now broken out of the wilderness zone and into Kagatende. They are heading straight towards him. It is shaping up to be a mega crossing. In spite of the presence of thousands of wildebeest on the shores, the crocodiles lie still. Crossing point after crossing point is passed up as the lead animals assess their chances of survival. Finally, they choose. And a single animal descends, unleashing a waterfall of wildebeest behind. These animals don't plan to wait. They are ready to cross. The first wildebeest jumps, followed by its yearling. The others follow in behind them. Within seconds, hundreds of animals begin to snake their way across the river. The crocs are drawn to the commotion.
So these wildebeest have been crossing the whole morning, and there's 2 or 3 huge crocodiles that's making their way in the line of wildebeest crossing.
The crocs get into position as the wildebeest struggle to get up the other side. Having seen the crocs, the rest of the herd stops crossing. Two crocs take aim on a yearling, but luckily the animal finds ground below the water and is able to outmaneuver them. They quickly scramble up the far bank to safety. One of the crocs has caught a wildebeest.
Just towards the end of the crossing, there was this enormous croc that got hold of a yearling that was struggling to get up the rocks, and it pulled it down, and then the second crocodile came in and literally just took the entire head of this wildebeest in his mouth, and all of them submerged, and that's the last we ever saw of all of them.
With too many crocs to contend with, the wildebeest have moved on to a new crossing point just downriver.
We've been sitting here now for probably the last 30 minutes. A constant stream of animals just streaming through the river. And I would estimate about now 10,000 animals at least have crossed in front of us.
The wildebeest live out their entire life cycle as a tribe of nomads on the Serengeti plains. Constantly on the move, stopping only briefly before they follow the rains again in search of the next green pasture. They have evolved as great sustainers of the plains, caretakers of the land, and also food for the predators along the way. It's a naturally evolved, perfectly balanced ecosystem, with every blade of grass, every creature on land, and bird in the sky playing its part in this continuous cycle of life on the Serengeti Plains.
So this is it. This migration of wildebeest and zebra are one of the last remaining mega migrations of the planet, and what makes this so successful is the fact that the Serengeti has been kept intact for so many years. The wildebeest crossed over into Kenya, and this is the completion of that circle where they would eventually in a couple of months start to be pulled down back into central Serengeti because of thunder showers that start up that way.